Yo, 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 I'm Candy, I be knitting, and today everything I be knitting seems to be for my husband. Um, and when I think about it, it's not because, oh, I'm just so nice and generous. It's mostly because it's a lot of things I've been putting off, and now due to circumstances, it seems like everything has coalesced into these works in progress. So first thing, I do have a finished object that became a work in progress that is now a finished object again. This is his cardigan that I made for him probably 2, 3 years ago at this point. Before the YouTube, before I was really posting my knitting on Instagram, this is the Stretta Cardigan, which is a worsted weight pattern, and I decided to do it in fingering weight cotton yarn as a lightweight cardigan for him. He likes to have just a little bit of an extra layer when there's like the AC is going and such. So this is like mostly just kind of like a house duster type situation. But the issue was when he first asked for it, it had just open straight sleeves and they were rather long sleeves. And he was not wearing it. And it turned out the sleeves were just too long and too open and he couldn't really push the sleeves up. So I said, I'll do ribbing on it. And so I ripped back a good like 3-4 inches and added a few inches of ribbing. And if y'all remember in my video this year talking about like what my goals were for this year and things I was working on, this was in a basket of other things I had been putting off, wanting to get that ribbing done. And it's funny because this is like his like summer thing that he wears, like I said, when it's cool inside with the AC going, and now it's transitioning into fall, winter months, and I finally got it finished. So maybe next spring, summer, he'll be wearing this again. Or when we have an 80 degree day in December, maybe he can wear it. But that is now done. I think I did like size 1 needles just because that's the biggest, that's the most appropriate size. And I was just like, do I go back and try to figure out the pattern? Literally, I just went around and picked up a leg of every stitch. I had maybe 98 stitches, I think, and looked at a similar, like a fingering weight pattern to see what those cuffs might look like. And I think it was like 64 stitches. So I just did some random math. I didn't want to overthink it because it's something that is kind of put off for so long. But that is now done. And he can wear this because this is, if you cannot tell, this is all over broken rib in a long, very long robe-like cardigan. So I'm very glad that this is now wearable again. The big thing I've been working on, and it feels so strange because it literally came together so quickly since the last time I've seen y'all, is his, what I call like, I guess his worsted weight sweater. That was a fingering weight sweater. This is his first. I've made a cloak for him. I've made that cardigan for him. And this is the first kind of pullover garment that's like the cloak and the cardigan were kind of just like fun things I was being creative with. And he mostly wears them around the house. But this is going to be a pretty nice sweater for him to like wear to work or, you know, on a date or what have you. And this is the Durak. It is from the Barocco portfolio. And everything I talk about, I'll have my Ravelry links below. And I believe maybe I showed you a swatch, maybe I showed you a sleeve, but we are at the point where I have, this is a bottom-up seamed sweater, so I have done a sleeve, done another sleeve. I did the front, did the back, seamed all of it up. I've done the collar. I've picked up stitches and done the ribbing for one sleeve. And so right now, the only thing I have left is the ribbing for the second sleeve and then ribbing at the very bottom. And this has been a long time coming. For both of us have been putting this off. One, I was like wanting to find the right pattern. I needed enough yarn to make the pattern, enough yarn in his color palette. You know, if you're familiar with the things I knit for myself, it's all stripes and things like that. And I really didn't have a sweater's quantity for a tall person and for a tall person that likes neutrals. And then, you know, he's been having kind of like, you know, he's been trying to like get his weight fluctuates, long story short. And so I'm like, do you want me to measure you now? Do you want me to measure you now? And we got to the point where I was like, I'm taking your measurements and we're doing this. And so this is the Durak, and this is 100% hand spun. So this will be my first garment this is my, not my first thing, my first sweater, 100% hand spun. And it's also the biggest thing I've ever done in hand spun. And where is, oh, did I not bring can you pass me that bag right there? Thank you. My lovely assistant is here with me this evening. This is some hand spun, and so I have some kind of thick, some of it's 2-ply, some of it's 3-ply. It's literally the first hand spun I ever, not my first hand spun, my first hand spun from the first fleece I ever bought. And I got this from Maryland Sheep and Wool, and then I paired it with some more recent hand spun that I got from R.H. Lindsay. And this is a Lincoln Cross. This is just a mixture of different New England sheep. And I've combined them both into this sweater. And how I've done that, basically my goal with this sweater was to have the shoulders be rather fitted and the sleeves be rather fitted, so it had a nice tailored look. And so up in the top of the shoulder, up in the top of the sweater, I only used my finer, more uniform, more recent hand spun. And then down in the body where I want it more of a relaxed fit, I striped it with this thicker, older, more inconsistent hand spun. And so what we get is areas of like this deeper chocolate, that's the newer hand spun, and then areas where you see more texture and more blacks and whites and grays all mixed together. That is the older hand spun being striped in. And it's actually came out quite effective. The sleeves are a little snug, but I think that's gonna give in time. And you know, when I finish this, I'll probably do not necessarily a deep dive per se into the pattern, because I am going off gauge. I chose based on my gauge, I chose a smaller size, and then I blocked each piece to a bigger size. So I did a bit of modification with this pattern, but I do want to talk about the process of doing a seamed sweater, because I feel like bottom up seamed sweaters get a bad rap in the knitting community, and there are very practical applications for it. For instance, the fact that the last time y'all saw me, this sweater was barely a thought. And the idea that, oh, I can just knit a sleeve. And then I knit a sleeve and I was like, oh, the sleeve's done. Okay, let me start the second sleeve. And then and so it took me 2-3 days to do the sleeve. And then, I was like, okay, I'm done with the sleeves. What do I do next? Cast on the back, something about top-down sweaters can be nice. They give a nice rhythm. It's just stockinette and stockinette and stockinette forever. But then the circumference gets bigger and bigger, and then it's like, oh, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to split for sleeves. It's just a different thing that happens psychologically, whereas this was more like very much like the potato chip type of knitting that a lot of people aspire to. So if you've never done a seamed sweater, I believe it's definitely a worthwhile thing. And the fit I'm getting is super nice, because a lot of people are concerned, oh, I like top down because I can try it on as I go. There were some moments where I was like, oh, is this the right size? And I'm just kind of holding it up to his body. But at the same time, I did a swatch, and I took his body measurements, and I took the measurements of a couple of his store-bought sweaters. And that fabric behaves a little bit differently. But at the end of the day, the swatch I'm getting, once I did one sleeve, I know if I knit it this many stitches, this many times, it's going to be yay big. And this is how, so there's a little bit of self-doubt, but the math works out. And at the end of the day, you're going to be able to replicate exactly the exact size of the sweater you're looking for. And so I'm going to step off my soapbox, but I hope to have this is going to be, knock on wood, but barring any, really big things that are happening, it should definitely be done before it's cold outside. I'll put it to you that way. It's chilly here. We're kind of in the fall, but this is 100% hand spun woolly wool. And so this is definitely a cold month sweater, and it does not get that cold here probably into January, February. So I have plenty of time. I don't know if it's going to be finished the next time we see each other, because I do need to take some time to work on some Halloween crafts because we are in October. But I am well on my way to finishing this, and it's kind of bananas considering it took us both so much time to pick the right pattern, to pick the right yarn. I had to actually spin all of this yarn. The old hand spun was done already, but there was about a pound of this newer hand spun that I bought, I think last winter, that had to be spun up. I spun it on drop spindles, so that took a little bit of time. And so this, at the end of the day, this is going to be kind of like my magnum opus, because it has the story of my hand spun, it has wheel spun, spindle spun, and the fact that I seamed it all up too. And it seamed, the last sweater I did that was mostly hand spun, I seamed with commercial yarn. But I'm at the point now where my hand spun is pretty uniform and actually is doing quite well with the seaming. I also, the only parts I'm knitting in the round is the ribbing, because one, I don't like to seam ribbing. I love seaming up until a point. And then two, I wanted some options about length. And three, I wanted to make sure I held back enough yarn from knitting the body and everything that I would have enough of this newer, more uniform, thinner spun yarn so that the ribbing came out really uniform. So that's like my only rule when I knit, is that my sleeves have to match. I can't use one type of yarn on this sleeve and one type of yarn on this sleeve. So I wanted to make sure I had enough that everything was going to come out really uniform. So that's that. And then we're going to slide right into more things I've been putting off. If you've been watching, not even if you've been watching, if you watched me 6 months ago and then didn't watch anything else, this will actually look familiar to you. I finished what I've been calling my wire socks. I say finished. I bound off one of the socks, and these were called the wire socks because I was just like, oh, I'm watching The Wire with my husband. I'm gonna knit these socks while I watch The Wire. We have since finished watching 6 seasons, hour-long episodes of HBO's The Wire. We watched a season of The Bear. We watched a season of the anime Dandadan. We've watched a lot of TV, and the sock continued to linger and linger and linger and linger. One day, well, what happened was, it was kind of a bit of a drag because I'm striping it. This is Hobie's Black Friday sock yarn. And so I'm actually creating these white and black stripes. And it was getting a little tedious, I'll give it that. I get into moods with the socks. But the real thing that was the problem is I got to the heel, realized my stitch count was off, realized something was going weird with my heel, ended up ripping back my heel, re-knit the heel. Something was going wrong again, and I just was getting really frustrated, and I think I just wasn't in a great place mentally, probably too, because I knit socks. I knit well. I can admit I am a accomplished knitter, but for some reason these socks were on the verge of defeating me, and I was just like, bruh, no, you get in there, you knit those. You're not going to let some socks that should have been done in a month defeat you. And the long and short of it is, I think the problem was I was doing the heel flap in the black yarn, so I actually ripped back because it just worked out that way. And I also wanted, yes, the sock does have white in it. The white will get dirty, and so I was just like, oh, let me make it look as clean as possible and do at least the toe and the heel in black, because those usually are the places that get the most wear. And then I decided, no, I can't do that. And so I did the heel flap in white, and then I was able to see what I was doing wrong on the heel, because the reason my stitch count was off, and if y'all remember that episode, I was like, should I rip back? The stitch count is off one stitch. The reason it was off is because I dropped a stitch actually, and I just couldn't see it with the black. Then on top of that, having to pick up stitches for the gusset. And then this pattern, I'm kind of doing my own thing, but this yarn was coming out to be a weird gauge, and so I wanted to try a 68 stitch sock, and so I looked up patterns on Ravelry that use 68 stitches, and I came across the Stripy Dandy pattern, and the only thing I wanted was the numbers to figure out how you deal with a 34 stitch heel and the short rows. But then I realized the pattern I chose did an Eye of Partridge heel, which is gorgeous, which is one of my favorite heels to do, but definitely not something I wanted to do in black yarn. One, I couldn't tell if I was missing stitches, and two, you really can't see the Eye of Partridge detail. It creates like this lattice work that is gorgeous. It's beautifully worn, but I was just like, this was a waste of time. And so once I got over that, I was just like, okay, let me do these decreases. There was a moment where I slip knit, and I should have knit two together, but I think I can I'm honestly thinking about duplicate stitching over it, but I'm just like, dude, get out of your head, just finish this freaking sock. So finish the sock, boom. I do have some ends to weave in because it is striped. I wove in some ends, but like the direction I was going in, it didn't work to weave in all of my ends as I went. And I want the socks to be completely reversible because my husband does wear his socks inside out. So I have a way that I like to weave in my ends so they're not as obvious as when you do like the weave in as you go. And now I am all the way here. I've done most of this in the past like week or so. I got to the second sock and I've been kind of blasting through it, and I'm almost at the heel. I have all my notes from the first heel. And I can just get these out of the way. I think part of it too is that I cursed myself, and I knew I was cursing myself at the beginning of the year. I was like, maybe this will be the year I do 12 socks in 12 months. And this will be my second pair of socks, and we're in October of this year. So I just really want to finish these so bad and move on with my life and never look at these socks again. All right. That being said, oh yeah, this is like my little go bag. It's what is it? The Fiberco, little tote bag. So it's got my cozy bag where I put my socks. Oh, wrong way. My cozy bag where I put my my socks in, and then the bottom of this bag. Speaking of knitting socks for my husband, I'm doing more darning of his socks. I got to, last year was all about like, oh, I'm gonna knit him 7 pairs of socks. He'll have 1 pair of socks for the whole year. And then as I'm slowly, and that's the other reason I want to finish those socks, as I'm slowly knitting him socks, the first socks that I'm knitting him are coming into disrepair. So I do want to repair some of his socks. I darned 1 pair, gave him back to him this week, and I have 2 pair left. And I just wanted to kind of run down some things that I've learned and things that I'm thinking about. One, I think my favorite method is to duplicate stitch. I've been having a lot of fun with that. I'm not sure if y'all are opposed to like seeing dirty socks, so I'm just not going to show you. They're pretty beat up. They're clean. They've been washed, but they're just kind of beat up. This sock looks a little bit better. This is where I've been working, and I just duplicate stitch. And it's not that he has holes in his socks. They're just becoming very threadbare, and I can see like, oh, a hole is going to develop there, so let me go and reinforce it. I've also done a little bit of like that weaving technique, but I think the weaving technique is a little bit quicker, but I just, there's something meditative about the duplicate stitch, and I think it comes out a little bit better. So I've been playing around with that. The other thing I want to kind of note is these socks are Felici from Knit Picks. They're, you know, the indicative stripes of Knit Picks. And this is Lion Brand sock yarn. I can't think of the name right now. I talk about it all the time, but this is the Lion Brand sock yarn. And I have noticed that the Felici, I love the colors, love the stripes. And the yarn itself is very soft. The issue with that is it pills a lot. And so what's been happening to his socks, like I literally turn them inside out to like kind of see what's going on with them, and fluff just comes out of them. And it's like fluff is like, I think what's happening is, well, I know what's happening is it's spun, wool is spun with a thread of nylon. And what's happening is all the wool is coming off, and I just get this one thread that's becoming super threadbare. And that's the nylon that's left over. and I believe it's because of the softness of the Felici. I'm not saying that this is like a bad yarn, but he wears his socks a lot. I have socks. I started knitting socks for myself years before. Like, I used to offer to knit him socks, and he's like, no, it's fine, that's fine. So I spent years knitting myself socks. I've had to darn 2 pairs of my socks, and one of them was literally the first pair of socks I ever knit myself, and the second pair, a little buggy may have gotten to them, and there was actually a hole in the sock. His socks, he always wears shoes, always has his feet enclosed in shoes. He does a lot of walking, and he really likes his socks a lot. He's a total convert to the wool sock club, which I 111% support, and I have a ton of sock yarn. So I don't mind knitting socks for him, especially if he wears them. Like, that's great. But I don't think the Felici is meant to stand up to that much wear and tear and that much usage. So I think I'm going to save the rest of my Felici for myself, because I don't wear my socks that much. I also wear flip-flops. Like, usually from like May to September, I'm in flip-flops 24/7, and I wear my socks just kind of in the fall and winter time, and he wears sneakers all the time. So I think that's a big part of it. The second part of it, I think, is the superwash aspect of it. The sock stretches out over time, and so I think what's happening is it's kind of like twisting up in his shoe, and that loose gauge is actually creating more friction and probably causing a little bit more wear and tear. So I think in the future, I'm either going to stick with the Lion brand yarn, or my thought is, because, well, actually, hold on to that thought, is to try some non-superwash yarn for him. And this is Mondim, Rosa Pomar, I think it's just called, most people just say Modim, I think. And it's a non-superwash wool that's specifically marketed for socks. And I think what's going to end up happening is the friction and the sweat and all of that stuff is going to felt the socks and actually create a more durable sock in the long term. And I've heard this from several people, especially, and I want to talk about this, we'll come back to the socks in a second. I've been wanting to mention for weeks now, a woman by the name of Miriam. She's on YouTube. She's knitting like a cave woman, and she's someone that I have followed and admired for years. Like, I'm Rulude on Instagram because of my garden. My garden is called Rulude. That's why my Instagram is called Rulude. And I met her through gardening. And she happened to knit, she happened to spin, she grew cotton and flax and all this stuff, and I just always admired her. Then I started knitting, and she was one of those people that was always very encouraging, always very educational, very knowledgeable, and to the point where I was like, do you have a YouTube? And she's like, no, I don't have a YouTube. And recently she got a YouTube. And this week's episode, and I'm going to link it below, I'm going to tag her below, and I'm going to link her video below, is all about all the socks she's made. And literally there's I think a reel or a picture on Instagram of her washing line of all of the socks she makes. And she's incredibly prolific knitter. She knits Marie Wallen patterns, and she's just amazing. But this week was all about her socks, and she was saying how she knits a majority of her socks in Jameson of Shetland wool, 100% non-superwash wool socks. And she's like, they're incredibly long wearing. Like, she's had the same socks for years, and she just got back from a trip from Scotland, and she was walking the entire trip, and she was just like, oh, I just knew I was going to wear a hole in my socks. Perfectly fine. And then she pulled out some socks that she had knitted from commercial sock yarn. And she was like, these are socks that I've had to darn, and they happen to be the socks that were knitted from commercial yarn that are marketed for socks that have the nylon in them. So I would trust Miriam on this topic. And so I was just like, let me go pull out my non-superwash. And if this works the way I think it might work, this is going to open up a whole nother situation. But I'm definitely going to give it a try. And I've heard that so many times, but it just felt so timely that Miriam said it this week as I was darning his socks, and I happen to have this Mondim. I'm like, I'm gonna give that a try. She also does a lot of knitting socks with her hand spun, and like I said, she's got a like I want to be her when I grow up, because she's got like this, you have to find this picture on Instagram. She's got this clothesline of just socks, and she says she knits so many socks, she just has to give them away. And so what I'm going to do with this is, I think, because the rest of the sock is fine, the top of the sock is fine. I thought the heel would be a problem because sometimes people get that abrasion slipping their foot into their sock, but that doesn't seem to be a problem. It's literally the ball of his foot and then where his big toe is gets the most wear. So what I think I'm going to do is, because this is just kind of like a plain red, I think I'm still going to use commercial yarn for the top and maybe the Lion brand commercial yarn for the very top, since it has a bit more toothiness to it. And then when I get down to the heel, switch to this yarn, and that way I can stretch it a little bit more. And I think what's going to happen is, yes, this will felt, and yes, there's a strength that comes with felting, but you still don't want to put this in the washing machine, right? Because it's going to shrink all over in the wrong way, and then just be, a baby couldn't get their foot into it. And so I think if the sock is red the way that this is red, it'll be like, hey, warning, don't put this in the washing machine, don't put this in the laundry room, hand wash this. And I do so much washing, blocking, finishing my hand spun. I have 100% wool sweaters. It's not going to be that much of an extra effort to hand wash a couple of pairs of socks every once in a while. In case you're not aware, you don't really want to wash your wool socks every single time you wear them anyway, and it's not really necessary. And so I think that this red will be nice just as a signal, like, oh, these are the don't wash socks. And also I'm still on that mission to like make the perfect sock. And that's the other thing that's happening too, is that I'm making him socks, and some of the early socks that I made maybe weren't as good. And so even though he may have 7 pairs of hand knit socks, only 2 or 3 are really working the way they need to be. So I just kind of need to replace them all and replace them a bit faster. That being said, I wanted to show y'all this really quick. This little bag here, this is all of the leftovers from every sock that I've ever made. And for a long time, I was just like, oh, I'm gonna have to find like a scrappy project, or maybe I'll bag them all up and take them to the yarn swap. But I'm actually coming to understand that I need to hold on to this bag for mending purposes. And so I do have all of the yarn. And so I think what's gonna happen next, I'm gonna start over new socks. The next pair of socks I make him are gonna involve this yarn. But for his older socks that are getting really worn, I think what I'm going to do, like, where is it? This one. Look away if you don't want to see the bottom of his sock. But this one that I've already patched up before, and now I'm going through and mending again. The next time a hole comes into it, I'm just going to cut the top off, and then I have the same yarn. I can just re-knit the toe, and that'll take me like an afternoon to re-knit that toe rather than mending on mending on mending on mending. So that's that. I do want to end with some hand spun, and that's all for me. This is some hand spun I was working on that I just finished today. It has not been washed yet. It's fresh off the, not fresh off the wheel. I do let them rest a little bit. And this is some Gotland that I got from the Shenandoah Fiber Fest back in 2023. And I've already knit a little bit with this. I did some sampling. I made a cowl for myself last year with different breeds, but I've since grabbed the rest of it and decided to knit it all up because I want to make something after knitting a sweater for my husband. I was like, oh, I kind of want a hand spun sweater. Oh, it smells so good. This is a Gotland cross I got from Shenandoah Fiber Fest. In case you can't tell, it's more of like a gray. Like you might be seeing a lot of white, but when you really look at it, it's more of a gray. And it's about a fingering weight. I don't know yardage because I haven't finished it yet. It still needs to be washed and snapped. But it's about 250 grams of yarn. So I was thinking as I was spinning this, I was like, I kind of want a vest or something like small that I know I can knit with this just to show off this yarn because it's so beautiful and so soft. But then that's my feeling when I was spinning it. Then I started applying it and I was like, you know what, this would look really good in a color work yoke, like something that's like maybe a nature scene, like if it was like mountains or trees, and this could be kind of like a snowy landscape on a yoke. Then I was putting it into skeins today, and I was just like, this might be, because one of my goals next year is to do, I want my next shawl, and y'all know I'm a Stephen West fan. I want my next shawl, my big shawl of 2026, to be a hand spun shawl. And usually I do pick a Stephen West shawl for the year to knit. And so if I could do a knit shawl and do it in hand spun and then be a Stephen West shawl, I think that might be the ticket. Speaking of people who have inspired me, I remember one of the first videos of Hey Brownberry I watched. She did a Stephen West shawl. I think it was like the Boneyard shawl or the Graveyard shawl, something like that. And she did it in all natural hues of undyed hand spun wool. And a lot of people give Stephen West a hard time because they're like, oh, the bright colors, the bright colors, the bright colors. It's just as gorgeous in grays and whites and blacks. And so I think that this might be a good color A or color B in something, but I need to figure out what it would go. I do have something else I'm kind of working on that could go with this, but I do feel like I need a hand spun shawl. This I do, just for your edification, if you're not a spinner, if you want to know more about this stuff, this is what it looked like before I spun it. These were some locks. They just gave me a little sample. When you're at the Shenandoah Fiber Festival, it's like shearers and shepherds and farmers presenting their fleeces. And so it came with like a little piece of paper that tells you all the stats about it. And I got about 2 pounds, and then you wash it and you lose a little bit in the process, and I've knit with it before. But this is what the washed lock looked like, and I'll probably just hold on to this forever because how beautiful is that? And so I washed it, and then I put it through the drum carder and made bats, and then the bats become this. And I think that's just great. This right here is left over because this was a very fine wool, and I'm a very tense person, and I think I just let it get away from me a little bit, and I ended up felting a little bit during the washing process. And so where is it? Let me show. Some of it isn't too, I just didn't want to sit there and pick through, and I was getting to the point where like I have enough yardage to do something. I don't need to like, I get a little like stingy with my yarn and my fiber sometimes, and it's like, girl, you don't have to use every little bit. But this, it's kind of, you can kind of tease it apart a little bit if I really wanted to work with it, but it just wasn't worth it for something I really wanted a nice finished project. So I'm just like, I'm willing to say this isn't the best thing to get the result I'm looking for. And so what's going to happen with this is I'm thinking of making, I'm trying to look for, I've been making some friends lately, and I might give this to a felter if I can find someone who felts. I think I'm going to keep a little bit because I think I can use a little bit of my Halloween costume. And if not, dryer balls is usually the thing a lot of people make with leftover fiber. It's supposed to be kind of an all-natural way of doing fabric softener. So you put them in the dryer and your clothes dry faster, but they also come out softer with just some balls of felted wool. And then I've also seen people felt around soap. That process seems kind of, every time I see it, it seems like it takes a lot of hot water, and it seems like you would lose a lot of the soap in the process. So I'm gonna have to look a little bit deeper into that. But when you have the soap with the felted wool around it, there's some antimicrobial properties to the wool that, you know, keep the soap kind of nice. And also, I guess you get a little bit of an exfoliation vibe from it. So we'll see. Definitely something to play with right here. It just seemed too nice to compost. If I had like some of that Lincoln cross that I put into that sweater, a lot of that went into my compost, the stuff that I couldn't spin. But this is so soft and so nice and has such pleasant memories that go with it that I wanted to hold on to it for something. That is that. I'm gonna leave it there. I probably won't see y'all for a few weeks, and then we got Halloween coming up, so we'll just see each other when we see each other. In the meantime, in between time, please like, subscribe, hit the bell, dislike this video, go subscribe to my, can I call her my friend Miriam are we friends? We're just kind of internet people. My internet person, Miriam, myself, I like to call her myself from the future because she just seems to be living my best life. You can follow me on Instagram at Rulude. You can hit me up on Blue Sky. I'm candibknittin on Blue Sky. I'm candibknittin@gmail.com. If there's something that you don't want to talk about in the comments and you want to talk directly to me, that's the best way to do that. Until the next time, peace.